A note before our show begins, our podcast is rated explicit for language. Our first episode of Super Serials ran a little bit longer than we intended it to, so in order to give Animorphs its full due, we gave it its very own special episode. So join us now for our second episode of Super Serials featuring the Animorphs. Transition to our second book, which is Animorphs, number 1, The Invasion. This was written in 1996 by K.A. Applegate.
Yeah, and this is interesting because these two books that we're doing in this episode in particular, 10 years apart. So, Christy's Great Idea, 1986. This Animorphs book, 1996.
It shows.
The two authors, the two authors are only a year apart in age. Anna Martin's only a year older than Catherine Applegate. I thought that was really interesting, and they're both Newbery winners. I feel like we need to, just take a second. Take a second.
What book did Anna Martin win?
Not Babysitter's Club. Well, it's a book set
10 Kids No Pets.
No, it's set in the 1960s. I think it's something that she's written more recently. You guys look it up. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But they're both Newbery winners.
I was shocked.
Yeah, well, it's not for either the things that they're famous for. Catherine Applegate didn't win one for an Animorphs book. None of the Babysitter's Club book won. But I thought it was interesting. They're both Newbery winners. Because we're teasing these books and making fun of them. But, let's be clear. These authors have had a lot to contribute to children's literature. And they are absolutely... have been celebrated for that.
I can't believe you drew the ship. That's cool.
Spoiler alert. Jesse's looking at my notes. But so I think that's important to notice about the authors, Yeah. Because this is written by K.A. Applegate.
Yes.
Catherine Applegate.
Now, a little bit, though, about myself. I have, whenever I was a kid, I read the Animorphs, but I did not read the Animorphs. Does that make sense?
You weren't into it.
I was not into it. Now,
they were my jam.
You know what? The one with the cat on the cover, I was. Because I was like, I like cats. I want to be a cat.
I actually never read any of them. It was just, at that time, I didn't want to read stuff for my grade level. I wanted to read adult books, even though, I wasn't really getting anything out of them.
Well, you know what? It's because there were stupid kids in my class who I hated, who loved Animorphs.
Right.
And I didn't want to be like them.
Oh,
that's true, too.
So, but see, then, in private, then I would, sneak by and, read them. So I have actually read all of the books.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, they're not as integral to my life.
Right.
As, say, what is it, Babysitter's Club and Sweet Valley High Work. Because those I was really emotionally invested.
I'll be honest with you.
I didn't have the same emotional
that was the Animorphs for me.
I'm now at the point where, I like the Babysitter's Club book more than the Animorphs one. Although... I think I would have liked the Animorphs one better when I was 13 because it was written for a 13-year-old boy.
Oh man, Animorphs, that was my shit when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I liked it better reading it back now. I mean, these books are fucking sweet.
The pacing is really good.
Yes.
I have to say,
That's
start
true.
The problem with Babysitter's Club books and a lot of serials are that a lot of the stuff is repeated because it's normally kids reading them and they'll read them out of order usually.
Yeah.
So it'll be we have to tell you that Claudia is the one with the cool artsy stuff. And with this one, it's we immediately get into action. I feel like I'm in in a super movie. Mm-hmm. This is something totally different. This is a totally different world and universe.
Yeah. And with the law of writing a story, they always say, especially with something like screenplay or with a really great story idea, start right at the beginning, but start as late as you can. We start, they are coming home from the mall, these 5 kids. We don't need to start any sooner than that. That's the last minute before the action starts. Yep. We are thrown into this story and, ready to go.
I do
We're actually, I like the point of view where, actually, as the narrator's telling us the story, it's already happened. He's you won't believe the fucking shit that just
that's
happened.
Important to know,
my life
too.
has totally changed.
Jake
and then it's told you as a flashback.
And Jake is telling us with a story as a flashback with more information than we have in the moment, which is important, because he says things in certain ways that you're oh, and only because I know the story in its entirety now. When I was reading the first one, I was I didn't catch that the first time, because how could you,
Yeah, I do have to say, I like how... But whoa, maybe even my town. There's this whole mystery thing about
it's pretty
you don't know what town it is. It's generic suburbia.
There are a couple really funny lines in here.
It's pretty sweet. That. So I think we should talk about the cover first.
Yes,
I found
the iconic Animorphs covers.
I found this copy of my own as well.
I love it.
Thank you, basement at my mother's house.
It's got very old-fashioned CGI with not a lot of texture to it.
It's awful.
It's got
I
the
mean, it
kid's
is god-awful.
Transitioning
And they get
into the
good
lizard.
after a while. The
They
covers
do.
do, but this one...
It's not good, but it's like...
you guys can check out a picture of this on our blog so you can enjoy it just as much as we are.
This is a new
Oh, wow.
That's
Oh my
the
god, that
reprint.
one's even scarier.
Yeah,
It's showing
this
like
is a
this.
new
two different ones. So who wants to start?
We should introduce the kids.
Yeah,
I think.
I'll do that.
Yeah?
So we got these
Okay.
5
Cool.
kids, right?
Yes.
They're a kind of eclectic group of friends. We
No-
got Jake.
Jake, yes.
He's the narrator.
Yes.
He's main dude. He's kind of
Main dude.
He seems like he wants to be seen as a tough guy.
Yeah.
You know? He's good at sports.
He's a little too cool for school.
He wants to
He's
be
a little above everybody.
He wants to be a jock, but he's like not a huge asshole. So yeah, he's just kind of like an
Finding his place.
all around dude. We've got Rachel. That's his cousin who. You know, he mentions that like she's attractive.
Attractive.
I mean, you know,
There's
actually she's
again,
really
the weird incest shit that I pick up on.
Actually, she's really attractive, but you know, I'm not going to do anything or anything. And then there's Cassie.
Also, bets on fan fiction for those two.
Oh, I was gonna get to that whole thing. In a
We'll
minute.
get to fan fiction
We've
later.
got
Guys are so advanced.
We've got Cassie, who is a black girl.
Wait, but before you go on, with Rachel, he describes her as clean and wholesome.
Yes.
And then he says, like, literally 2 lines later, Cassie is the exact opposite of that. And I was like, is that just because she's black? Like,
He mentions the blonde
There
hair.
are other
He
black
does mention
things
the blonde
too
hair,
later,
blue eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rachel's blonde, blue-eyed, yeah.
Yeah,
Hitler super
he
youth.
says that. And also, like, really long legs, is good at gymnastics, but isn't good at gymnastics or something.
She's good,
Yeah.
but she's like very
Her-
graceful, but she said she's too tall to be
She's
good
too
gymnast.
tall.
Right.
Which is, again, like, what kind of description do we need to, like, why do we need
I didn't
that?
understand that.
I guess that's kind of true, though. You have to be short to be good at gymnastics. I mean, that's
I guess
Rachel's
so.
self-assessment. Like, she clearly knows that she's not as good as
Oh,
her
see,
peers because she's
Jake-
too tall.
But see, Jake is the one describing her. That's why.
Yeah,
Well, he didn't
I think
mention
he
that
even
she had
says
said
that she's the one
She-
that says
okay,
it. She
okay,
says
okay,
she's too
But
tall.
yeah, then
Okay.
Cassie is,
Okay.
you know, she's black, she's shorter, she's not particularly athletic, she super duper fucking loves animals. And super duper conveniently for the story, her family runs like an animal hospital for
A
all
zoo or
sorts.
something?
It's a wild thing.
No, her family runs a hospital for all sorts of different kinds of animals. Her mom works at the zoo that is attached to an amusement park.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not exactly
convenient for
a
fight
zoo.
scenes.
It's
I
like
mean,
an animal experience.
It really works out for them, let's
Yeah,
be
it-
honest.
It's basically Geauga Lake.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have Marco.
Yes, Marco.
Marco is the one I identified with.
Okay.
He's the funny one.
Okay, yeah, he's a wisecracker.
He's the wisecracker. He also like he talks a big game, but like he doesn't really want to fight. He doesn't really. He's kind of timid when it comes to like the action. And then we have Tobias, who's just
Tobias.
Tobias.
Yes.
He's just kind of.
That's who Alan identified with, because Alan wanted to be a bird. And I'm sorry I just outed you.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Bird. What, do you want to be an emo kid?
No,
No,
dude,
no.
I mean, if you
Tobias
had
was
the
like the
opportunity to
cloud of
fly,
the group.
if you were gonna fly, like flying sounds okay. Like,
Yeah.
but Tobias is kind of like the outsider kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
He
to
just
be
happens
fair,
to be at the
Yeah,
mall.
he is
His-
kind of...
To be fair, like his mom died and his dad, she drowned, and his dad did not take it well. His dad has like lapsed into a fit of depression.
Well, that's Marco, right? That's
No,
Are you
that's
sure?
Marco.
It is,
Yeah,
it's
Marco.
Marco.
Oh, okay.
Because that's
Marco has
part of
personal
Marco's
tragedy,
and
yeah.
that's part of Marco's reticence to kind of join the spoiler
That's
alert
right,
fight.
that's right.
But I mean,
Marco
if he touched
has-
a fish, then he wouldn't drown like his mom. So that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Oh my god!
Wow,
Did I
that's
go
funny.
too far?
No,
Did I go
no,
too
not at
far?
all.
So dark.
Now, what was the thing about
Tobias, he's been shuttled around between his two aunts.
That's
I
right.
think
His
Yeah.
parents
died
don't.
or
His parents
something.
died, and like neither of his
Lots of
uncle
dead
and
parents
aunt
in this
want-
town.
broken homes.
Well, you know
y'all.
what? I there was a crack podcast that talked about like why heroes in fiction need to have their parents dead, and I don't remember why. It just has to do with like characterization. So it's
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it's
a
been
common
a
trope
part-
for a reason.
And it's
yeah.
it's been a part of stories, since stories have been around,
Right.
to give the hero their journey. But in Tobias's case,
well,
he's been shuttled across
so
the
that's-
country between an aunt and an uncle that hate each other.
on opposite coasts. Yeah.
Yeah, of
Exactly.
course.
So he doesn't really.
Do
feel
we think the story
particularly
takes
loved.
place in maybe California, maybe Washington?
Maybe.
I feel like it might. I feel like because I mean
You're
they're
probably right.
very close to the water.
It
There's
feels
beach.
very West Coast
It's
to
very
me.
beachy.
I don't.
Yes.
But I don't feel like it's East Coast beachy. Like I don't feel like it's Jersey boardwalk.
You're
You know?
right.
Or even like the Carolinas. I don't feel that either. I'm feeling like Washington maybe.
Yeah, they feel the kind of nonchalance about there being a beach that you feel like West Coasters are more likely to have.
Yeah, maybe like upstate California.
Maybe, yeah, I
Probably.
could see that
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
so-
For sure.
but
So-
definitely not.
So we've got these 5 kids. Oh yeah, Jake. I mean, I don't think they're explicit with, but Jake ends up hooking up with Cassie, right? Like he
has a crush on her.
He has a crush,
he admits
yeah.
that right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if the books are for the age where hooking up is a thing.
No, you know what I mean. Like they
No, I know.
That's like
I know.
Animorphs 69.
Become
We'll
an
get
item.
there.
Animorphs 69.
well, since
We'll
we're
get there.
well, I think we're there. Listen,
So that's his crush.
before I tell you any more about the book, I'm going to tell you that this is the series that launched 1,000 Furries.
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
The descriptions of the animal to the human to animal and animal back to human transformation sequence are lovingly detailed.
Guys have to dirty up everything.
They are
Not my fault.
definitely voluptuously described. I have read erotica that had descriptions less intense. Okay, seriously. I mean, like, just the way that they showed the people turning into animals and the appreciation for the animal anatomy that was shown made me
She
feel
likes
like
animals, okay?
it made me feel like it was like this,
Listen.
like it all but said like this is for you to touch yourself to.
In one of like the sexual deviation classes in like psych in college, I read they were like, well, like stuff whenever you're like younger or like, you know, prepubescent or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like stuff you're exposed to, they think can have like some kind of influence on like your sexual preferences.
And
later.
I wasn't being facetious. Like I really think there probably
like,
was a
Animorphs
surge
probably-
in interest in like anthropomorphized animal stuff because of the stuff in this book.
Yeah, I mean Bugs Bunny, but also
I know, of course. I mean, I just mean like this. That's this generation's.
Yeah.
Or maybe the last one.
But
I'm not getting on it. I liked it. I mean.
oh, I mean everybody liked.
I like the story. I just like reading it as an adult.
It's
I was
just
like,
they're
wow, these are really uncomfortable to read.
I think it's because we've been exposed to the internet. Whereas, like, I
Yeah.
feel like kids now would probably be the Animorphs and be like, what the hell? Like, it's a weird thing. But, like, before, like, we didn't have the internet to ruin everything for
Yeah.
us. Because, yeah.
Just as soon as they
The
first
internet
started
is a dark
describing the
place.
Andalite, and they're like, oh, he was like a beautiful combination of a man and a deer with like all the sleekness, and I'm like, you could just see all the muscles underneath the skin. Okay, so anyway, we've got these 5 kids.
Okay.
They're hanging at the mall. We learn a little bit about their families and their problems.
Did you like the suburban hellscape that was described with the construction zones?
Yeah.
And the,
That was a good time.
the mall?
There
It
was
was a good time.
they were gonna build a new mall at this construction site, but then they kind of like gave up.
Yeah.
So there are all these like
Kind of like Century 3.
there are all these like pleasingly half destroyed, half built buildings, like
Yes.
discarded construction equipment,
Yes.
and it's a big no to go through here for the
Well,
kids.
there's probably rust and
Jake's dad
Well, too,
Nails it,
lots
right?
of people drinking the beers,
Yep.
The
having
beers.
the sex.
that sex.
You
and
know,
like-
being
mean-
the homeless.
So true.
That was what they were worried
So
about.
anyway,
Yeah,
these kids they're coming home from the mall. That's where our story started,
Yes.
technically, at the mall. They're coming home. They're not supposed to go through the construction site, like Jesse
But they're
said.
gonna save a bunch of time, so fuck it. They do.
Right,
Right,
fuck it.
right.
And they're not
fuck it.
afraid. They're
Right.
tough.
So, literally, I mean, what I like about the story, I think the most, is that it doesn't fuck around.
Yeah.
It, like, gets you
I agree.
right into
Gets
it.
right
Like,
going.
all right, guys, we know who the characters are. Let's go see some aliens and shit.
Yes.
So
right away, as soon as they get into the construction site, flying saucer.
flying saucer. And
Then it comes down and it's not a saucer.
and like you see that it's a spaceship,
Mm-hmm.
and so
But it's not that big. It's
It's-
what, like the size of a bus?
I
they
think
said?
a couple of minivans.
Yeah.
A couple
Yeah.
of minivans. And
Also, 2 Star Trek references. Like, there's a lot of Star Trek references throughout this series, which
Yeah. Well,
I
I
was
mean,
pleasantly surprised about.
Yeah.
it gives you convenient pictures of starships that people already have in their mind. You can be like that, but different, instead of having to be complicated.
Yeah, so UFOs, y'all.
yeah, so the spaceship here, there's a description. It says, the little spaceship looked almost cute, you know, kind of harmless. It was, the front end was a pod, shaped almost like an egg. Extending from the back of the pod was a long, narrow shaft. There were 2 crooked, stubby wing-like things, and on the end of each wing was a long tube that glowed bright blue on the back end. And then it said, it looked kind of cute, except that it had a sort of a tail, a mean-looking tail that curved up and forward, coming to a point that looked as sharp as a needle. So,
You know,
I
now
tried
that-
drawing it, y'all.
You know, now that you describe it, and now that
Oh
I
my
see your
God.
picture, it really feels like a 13-year-old boy was like, what if we took the Enterprise but gave it like a wicked scorpion stick?
Or maybe just did a scorpion dick. Like, there's no
It
parts.
looks
Like, there's
like
no
scorpion
drawing
dick.
that I came up with that doesn't look like a dick.
Yeah, also,
They all look like
I mean,
dicks.
These parts, it's hard to draw these and not have them look like the nacelles that are, like the warp nacelles that are classically on a Star Trek ship.
Yeah.
It's true.
Which
I mean,
I'm cool with.
that's how I felt like
And-
it was described.
And they
Yeah.
mention
But-
as it lands that those nacelles give off like an electric field, because at one point he mentions that like Rachel's blonde hair was standing on end, as if like from electric shock. He's like, the only one who looked normal was Cassie, and I'm like, okay,
All
okay,
right, all
yeah,
right.
all right,
We
All
get
right,
it.
Jake's hormones.
we get it. She's
We
black.
got it.
We get it. You love it.
We get it. It's like a sheep. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so anyway, I mean, spaceship right off the bat. I thought there was a really cool quote about Tobias here, because obviously they're all seeing this spaceship and they're all like scared out of their fucking minds. Thought this was cool. It says Tobias, like had this like look of awe on his face and didn't seem bothered. And Jake makes this observation. He says, Tobias is never scared of weird stuff. It's the normal stuff he can't stand. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Because
That
Tobias
is
is,
interesting.
I mean, he's a very important character to the series. I mean, they all are for different reasons.
Right.
But something very profound happens to Tobias
Yeah.
actually in this book.
And that's a nice quote about like the banality of evil too.
Yeah,
You
know?
exactly. That was deep. I loved it. I loved it.
To foil the incessant dick jokes that are going
Yeah,
on.
I mean there is some.
I mean,
some
we
good
can be
stuff.
serious too.
Yeah.
We can be super serious.
That's our super serial about serial. But so then, like, this alien needs help. He,
Yeah,
like,
so
really
we have
comes
this
out.
creature.
Right.
We know him as a member of the Andalite race.
He is a
Species,
blue
etc.
human deer hybrid.
Yep.
Instead of antlers, he has these weird, gross eye stalks that can move in any direction. And he's when I say human deer hybrid, I mean like a centaur. He's got like a human torso and then like 4 quadruped legs, and he's blue, and he's very majestic.
And he's like Voldemort in the face, right? Like he has slits for his
Yeah,
mouth.
he doesn't have a mouth. He has these
Voldemort
vertical
face.
slits like a hockey mask kind of thing.
Exactly.
He-
Exactly.
So he clearly doesn't eat or talk. He just projects thoughts telepathically, and they show
And that's
up,
a big thing too.
they show up in these little chevrons as like, oh,
I
this-
loved the way they did the
I,
language.
I like
that
it
was
too. It was
interesting.
like
I love that.
the first time he
So-
talks at them, they're like, "Did I hear that?" Because like I didn't hear it with my ears. I just heard it in my head.
So explain that. So there's
there's
quotes
so in this
for verbal talking.
Right. The verbal the speech is quotation marks.
Right.
Anything that's verbal telepathic speech is in little greater than and less than signs. And also the telepathic character mentions, "Oh, I can't just hear all of your thoughts. You have to think at me." So,
Right.
like,
Yeah, which is interesting.
which is good because they don't have to deal with any of the messy stuff of like
You
I
I'm
was
can't.
thinking about
like
Cassie.
reading people's
and-
thoughts. Yeah, exactly.
It's not like a mind reading thing.
Right.
Like it's
Yes.
and
And they can only do it while they're animals.
Oh yeah, the kids can do it too. We're getting a little ahead
They
of
can do
ourselves,
it
but
too,
the
yeah.
Andalite can do it to to them. He can speak to them, and too. I feel like the Andalite can give them impressions of things,
Yeah.
because they inherently know he's telling the truth. Like they know
Yeah.
he's not messing with them, or I mean, that'd be kind of a dick move.
That'd be super dick
but
You get the feeling he's giving them like more information than their brains can even really handle.
honestly,
Right.
because he's
'Cause-
giving them feelings, he's giving them images.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to communicate with them in a number of
And
ways.
at one point, he gives Tobias a bunch of information just to like, here's everything. You can access it
here's
later.
what here's
Yeah.
what I can give you. Too, like he sends like feelings their way. Jake in particular can like feel his hatred for the
His
group
enemies.
that he's
Yeah.
he's in battled with, because what's happening is like, I guess there's like big wicked space battles going on right outside of Earth.
Yeah,
How do you know
as
this?
usual, like giant space empires are battling, and we're just on the
fine.
periphery of it.
It's fine.
So
It's fine.
yeah,
But-
this guy is an Andalite.
Ki-
They are a race of dudes that have
Of
been
humanoid deer people.
humanoid deer people.
Humanoid
They have
thing.
a proud ancient tradition of fighting these dudes named the Yerks, or the Yerks.
The Yerks.
Yeah.
Who are these like sentient pieces of wadded up chewing gum that take
Sluggy.
they
Slug-like.
Sluggy.
take yeah,
Yeah.
they take people over like brain slugs.
They crawl
Like
in your
body
ear,
snatchers.
which is disgusting.
Yeah, they're a
Gross.
parasite. They don't
Yeah.
have their own bodies for
They
moving
can
around.
they just like sit on top of your
They
brain.
just sort of slurp into your ear and control your brain. And the people that are owned by them are called controllers, which doesn't seem exactly right. More like controlled. But anyway.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree
And
with
then, so the Andalite shows up and he has like a 10 or 15 minute head start on the guys chasing
Something
him.
like that, but he is dying.
So
he is
like,
mortally wounded.
Yeah.
And also, can you... So this kid is... Or this Andalite is injured.
Yes.
Or something, or is about to die, and he keeps conveying that to the children he's going to die. So why would the kids be like, let's call an ambulance? Why would that be your first...
I can understand that. Like, he's sick, help him.
What can the ambulance do for an alien?
I feel like they were like, he's hurt, fix it.
They also get this impression of, like, this is too much for us. We're just kids.
And that's
like,
interesting,
too. They say that to him right away. They're like, you shouldn't be telling us this, dude. You should go find the government and tell them. He's like, no, there's no time. No.
Yeah, also, and you can't trust them anyway.
Also, your government has already been infiltrated. Like, I'm here ahead of the front of the war, but there are hundreds of them already here. And so, like, there's this ominous thing where it's like, fuck, who can I trust, you know?
Yeah.
It's a very, like, grandiose idea, and I think that's why, like, kids latched onto it so much. It's, like, this whole otherworldly
thing that
can happen on your lap.
It's very exciting.
Like E.T.
Pretty much right away.
That. Like, just this other world is on your lap now.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
So pretty much right away, like, these other alien ships show up. And the Andalite is telling us, like, oh, like, we had an awesome space battle, and we thought we were prepared, but they had this extra super secret ship hiding in one of the craters of your moon. And it sounds kind of like an axe, basically, like a giant axe that's cool. It looks like a giant, like, space guitar. And that lands. It's, like, about, like, 20 or 30 times bigger than the little ship. And then, like, a bunch of little stupid bug fighters. And these other aliens get out.
Yeah, and, well, this is after... the Andalite, who is, by the way, Prince Elfangor.
Yeah, he's a prince.
He's a prince, but he gives them...
oh, that's right. He gives them a gift.
He definitely gives them powers.
I thought this was funny, by the way. Hold on. He says, I have a gift for you. Maybe this will be enough. I'm going to give you these powers. No one among my race has ever shared these powers with anyone. Now, go into my ship and get the powers sharing device. It's literally the only thing in there. It's like, you've never done this before. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Maybe the power sharing box does other things. Like, maybe it plays TV
You're probably
tales.
right.
First of all,
it's fine.
I was like, you're going into an unmarked white van. That was my first thought.
Yeah.
But my second thought was, if you guys were young teenagers and these aliens were offering you powers, yay, nay, or maybe?
Oh yeah.
I definitely want powers.
Bring it.
To me, I would have hightailed it the other way. I'd be like, I'm going to go start a babysitting club.
You're probably right. I mean, like...
I was more cautious and anxious as a kid, so maybe, like, I wasn't as, like...
You know, this is like the Fermi paradox. People have the same point of view. They're like, well, I hope there are aliens. I'm excited to meet them. And then you have people like Stephen Hawking who are like, no. If they can travel through space, they're going to be way ahead of us. Look, I mean, how many years ahead of the Indians or the Spaniards? And look how badly that turned out. They're going to be millions of years.
That's an excellent point.
That's a
so
good point,
maybe the power they would share with you would be like too much for our bodies. It would just turn into like the power to die of radiation poisoning or something. You know, like
power to give yourself cancer.
Yeah, like
over
the powers,
and over again.
Over and over.
The powers that people got in like the old Golden Age comics. It's like, if you got bit by a radioactive spider, I think you just get cancer.
Yeah, I mean,
so I can see your point of view.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
but for me, I mean, if you're asking as a kid, you know, I don't know if you can speak to this, Jesse. I know you're also an only child. When I was an only child, like I thirsted for like magic and for like things to be real and otherworldly.
I would pretend to have powers whenever I would like play pretend anyway.
Yeah,
I did because I was the only girl. Mm-hmm. So like I was. It's weird because like I had siblings, but I couldn't relate to any of my siblings because none of them were girls. Even though I had like all these, I had like 5 brothers, but it didn't matter. You know, it didn't matter because I still felt like I was. You know, so different.
Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, I could see
that.
Any excuse for that to have been real, I'd have been on that shit. I'd have grabbed that tiny blue box. If it melted my brain, what a way to go.
Yeah. So it's a cube, right? And so all 5 of the kids put their hands on one face of the cube, and then he puts his hand on the other face. Yeah, so all 6 are taken up. Yeah. And yeah, you're right. It just seems like it's generally like a telepathic link-up device. And so yeah, he basically downloads the power into them, and it's the power to morph into any
from the cloud.
It's the power to morph into any animal that they touch and thereby absorb the DNA of. And
pretty straightforward powers.
Yeah, and
it seems
and
simple.
It's kind of funny.
He's
like, oh, by the way, be sure not to stay in an alien form or in an animal form for more than
Cinderella clause
for more than 2 of your Earth hours, or you'll be stuck that
That's
way.
a very. I mean, if there's an instruction manual to get, I mean, that's what you get.
It's true. I just thought it was funny that like the alien power was measured out
also as a
an exact number of Earth
he said,
hours.
Yeah, I mean, he said 2 of your Earth hours.
Wouldn't
I mean, maybe that's like 2 days on another planet.
That is true.
I just felt like it would
Time
probably be
could
more
operate
like.
differently.
I just felt like it would be more likely he'd be like, it's 2 galorgalops. That works out to like 2.75 hours. You know, like how is it that's that neat? That's too much of a coincidence.
That is.
The kids need to be able to like tell the time though. Okay.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's convenient.
I mean, and back then kids actually wore watches. Could you imagine like if you just had your iPhone?
Yeah, I would try to pick up my phone and be like, shit, I'm a dog.
Forever. But that's because that's the clause. You cannot stay in the form for more than 2 hours, or you're gonna be that animal forever.
Right.
And also, I mean, how do you keep time though? Like, if you're a bird, like, do you put a watch on your
Well,
you
guess-
can see. You can see.
Yeah,
people's
also,
wristwatches
I guess
with
the
your eyes
idea
so good.
I
is
guess that's true.
they weren't all
clocks worked back then.
They probably wouldn't all become animals at once. Like there would be a human among them to like keep an eye on them.
Keep
but we're
track
getting
of
ahead of
time.
ourselves.
We are.
So let's
It's
talk
true.
about
It's
the
so true.
aliens.
Yes.
These dudes.
The Yerks.
These dudes come out and the Yerks are the
Oh
controllers.
no, we're talking about the Andalites still.
Well, I thought like
There's a bunch of aliens.
We're at the point now where all the
There's
aliens
fucking
show up, so I'm
aliens.
going to talk about them.
Yeah. This is Game of Thrones of space.
Yeah. So
Totally.
these are the grunts, like that do all the work for the Yerks, are these other alien races that they've taken over. Kind of like how the Borg, was like a bunch of different species.
Okay, that makes sense.
So these guys, mainly you have the Hork-Bajir. Is that right?
Yeah, the Hork-Bajir, they were the involuntary. They were involuntary, right? They're
they were
slaves.
they had been conscripted as slaves.
Yeah, but
they were pretty badass though. They were like
they're like the knifey ones.
Yeah,
right?
they sounded like they were just like kangaroos made out of sharp edges.
Yeah,
and
I buy
they
that.
very much struck me as like the kind of thing that a 13-year-old would be like badass. Like even as I was reading, I was like, oh man, I hope one of them gets to like absorb a Hork-Bajir so that they can become that cool knife thing. Right?
That would be sweet.
Yeah,
So-
and then there are these
so,
other
yeah,
things
totally.
called the taxon
controllers.
and they're
yeah.
just
and they're just like, we sign up for this, right? Like they're voluntary.
yeah, they're voluntary.
Yeah.
But they're these giant centipedes, and they have gross jelly eyes.
Gross.
Yeah,
Well, we know how you feel about jelly.
You know how you feel about jelly. That was what made me think of that.
Jello is the problem.
Right, and that's the thing to mention too, is that when a Yerk takes you over, if you fight it, it never gets 100% full control of your body.
Mm-hmm.
If
you can fight, you
if
can
you're
resist.
a collaborator and you allow it to take you over, it gets full control of you. But then also the Yerk society treats you better and you get benefits. But we'll come to that.
You get a good
So like
health
that.
plan.
It's like the Irish.
401k.
Yeah. Well, I mean, more like less torture and agony. I
Less-
think. Like they got to watch TV. So
So
all these
okay,
dudes
they got
come,
to watch
all these
TV.
dudes come out and like. Fortunately, the Hork-Bajir can't see that well in darkness, so but
they can smell.
They smell really well
and hear really
So
well.
like the kids
Okay.
are able to more or less escape from them, but then
They're like still watching. They're like adjacent
Right.
to this confrontation.
and then like the regional chief comes out, and the Andalite has told them about this guy. His name's Visser 3, and they're like, he's the only other guy on the bad side who has the ability to morph, so you have to watch out for him.
Yeah, because
And
the
then-
Yerks,
yeah, that's right.
the
that's
Yerks
right,
don't have
that's
the technology.
And and then he lands this bad guy in his awesome knife or his awesome axe ship, and you find out, oh shit, the bad guy Visser 3 is the same race as the Andalite prince. He's like an evil.
He's an
Andalite.
Andalite.
By the way, in these many minutes that have gone by, no cops have shown up.
Right.
Oh,
Even though we find out
Exactly.
later there's been 911 phone calls, seeing ships in the air, no cops
Yeah,
still.
this isn't like happened quietly. It's been a huge commotion. In fact, the cops had to explain it away as being like kids shooting fireworks off.
Oh yeah, people noticed. I mean,
Right.
people noticed that
Yeah.
it happened. Yet, I mean, but nobody came.
Nobody came.
But we'll find out why in a minute.
So the
you
classic
know?
scene, like I remember, like in Earthbound happens. Basically, like the prince is there, and then the bad guy shows up and he goes, "Ah, prince, at last we meet again. Time to kill you." And then like he kills him, and then he dies. And they're like. And actually, Jake is like, "Fuck you, dude!" Like he gets so like they have.
He
such
gets
a,
like super pissed.
They get such an
It's like you
intense
just
emotional.
met this guy.
Well, they get
Yeah.
such an intense
Well,
emotional.
Marie's leftover cube.
They get an intense telepathic emotional connection with him, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
Tobias like feels like it's a member of his family.
Yeah,
right
he
away.
stays with the Andalite
He stays with
for
the
a little
Andalite
bit
and like
before
cries
Yes,
everybody
before they
comes.
absolutely have to leave.
But then when Visser 3 comes, he turns into something like fucking terrifying.
Yeah, he turns into this awful alien beast and like
And he-
destroys the Andalite.
He
eats him.
eats him.
He eats
Like,
him, and
yeah.
like they describe like pieces of his body falling out. And
It was
getting,
dark.
and getting picked
Like,
over
it was
by the
very
little centipede
grisly.
dudes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
this is, I mean,
Also,
for a kid's book, man. Like there was some imagery in this.
Yeah, they didn't have any cusses. Like when the characters would cuss, they'd be like, and then she said some words that I didn't even know she knew. And
Yeah.
it's like
you can tell these were definitely edgy in the 90s.
Oh, they were
yes.
very
very edgy.
But I
they
have
were
to say,
scary.
I love whenever they're all like touching the cube, just to go back to that, and then he's like explaining like the rules, and he goes to the 2-hour rule, and they're like, like anything else, he's like, no time to explain, and they like die right there.
Oh yeah,
I was like, that's
I like that too.
He's like you'll just have to learn.
I had
out.
a note about that actually. It was like, oh. We could tell he was really close now. Well, he had only a little bit of life left. Oh, death imminent. It's like, lives for another half an hour, you know?
Yeah, so that he can get eaten.
Yeah.
But he
does... The gristle.
He does, like, flash...
Yes.
Oh, that was disgusting.
Hold on, I have more exposition.
He flashes
Okay,
a bunch
now
of shit to Tobias, though, so he, like, knows a little bit more.
It's
so
clear Tobias
is kind of, like, the expert. He had the biggest connection with him.
Right.
Everything, So Prince Elfangor is no more. He was eaten by Visser 3. It was disgusting. The kids are watching it, and like you said, Jake kind of like flips out for a second, loses his mind.
They all pull him back to like, dude, don't get killed.
But they betray their location because the Hork-Bajir can, hear and smell them.
Right.
So they end up being chased all through the construction site. They have this theory like they can't chase all of us at once.
So they all split up and run, and that's the end of like the first like action sequence.
Absolutely. They're chased through the construction site, but everything's okay. They end up being able to get away. And
Visser 3 is more or less like, fine, run, I'll get you eventually.
Yeah, I'm not worried.
And by the way, they do mention that Visser 3 is like a title, because at one point he's like, then I'll take over the Earth and I'll be so important, I'll become Visser 1. And
so he has career goals.
Yeah.
Career goals.
Among other things.
Good.
So totally. So
these kids
chase.
try to move on from their life.
I mean, they go home.
They go home and they try to convince themselves
to go to sleep. And except
they try to convince themselves they don't have this responsibility to protect the Earth. And then
and then Tobias goes over to Jake's house and he's like, dude, what did you do today? Because I turned into a cat.
I wrote it down. He's like, I became dude. Dude is the name of his cat. But the fact that it just said I became dude, I lolled.
I was talking about this with my boyfriend, and it was like, okay, if you're a teenager and you can turn into animals, what do you think you're going to start doing?
I would turn into a boy. I want to know what that's like. I want to know what that's like, alright? You can be another human.
That never came to mind.
I want
never
that.
thought of that.
I need that.
Holy shit.
I thought you were going to go the other direction. Be like, I don't know what animal sneaks into girls' locker rooms. Like.
Well, you wouldn't have to sneak because you'd be the other gender. I just think it'd be interesting. I mean, I guess that's not what you were looking for. I'm sorry.
No, that's.
I mean, I put kitty, but.
Now we got some fan fiction ideas.
I guess, man. We got some stuff going on.
Cat seems safe.
But like I don't know. They're like, oh, we're walking around exploring. It's like they were probably gonna do it, right? Like that's what a teenager would probably do, right?
You would I maybe have this power. Let's see if it works.
Because the other thing too is the instincts are that's the other thing about whenever you have the power that you still retain your human instincts, but you take on a lot of the animal instincts. Right. So it's like, well, what are the basic animal instincts? I'm like,
eat, fuck.
Yeah, that was.
They don't. They don't cover that quite as much.
Yeah.
But they do mention that
the repro functions we just put on the back burner.
Yeah, mostly sleeping and eating. I
thought they did a good job with portraying how the primality of the animal mind is hard to pull against.
Yes, because it is a big pull because you're taken over by the animal.
And that's the conflict.
And it's hard to stay human.
They can only stay an animal for 2 hours before turning permanently. But the thing is, they start to like it so much. Jake mentions particularly that he becomes his family dog, and he's so happy and fulfilled as a dog.
That was interesting.
Because you're not a complicated creature. Dogs aren't complicated.
And also...
And dogs get so much satisfaction out of things.
And that's a great foil for being a teenager because it seems like nothing can satisfy you. Nothing can fulfill you.
Going through a lot. Going through a lot of changes.
Your emotions are magnified. So to be an animal just seems like it would be so much simpler.
Right. Mm-hmm. And Tobias becomes a bird, and he's like, I feel free. I feel like I can escape from all my troubles by flying, and he clearly has the biggest passion for it. Although it seems like Cassie gets the best at it because she has a bunch of animals to practice on.
Yeah, and she already has an affinity for them. Right. I think her relationship.
She thinks more clinical about it too.
Her natural affinity for animals, and you're right. Yeah, having seen their
but it's neat because she can turn the morphing into an art form.
Right. And she's
so.
also the first one who learns how to morph, like, with clothes.
Yeah.
Like, that's,
that's like a thing for a little bit. The guys can't.
The guys
yeah,
are
kind of like on the World of Alex Mack, remember? Like, that she could turn into a liquid, and that happened the first time.
Yeah.
Well, exactly.
I thought it was interesting on page 57 how we need you most of all, Jake, because Jake isn't so into this at first. Like, he's
but
like,
I don't know, guys.
Yeah, the others all assume that he's going to be the leader.
Yeah, I wondered why he would be the leader, because I was
Jake,
like, Tobias or Cassie would be more like the leader, because Cassie has more access to animals, knows more about animals.
Right.
And Tobias seems just into it, but it's like Jake doesn't really seem to be as like...
He seems the most level-headed, I suppose, of all of them, though, because nobody's putting Marco in charge. And
Sorry, Marco.
Sorry, Marco. Yeah, sorry, Jesse. No. That dude's not in charge. And Rachel, like, half the time is just, like, the wisecracking... foil to Marco, basically.
Right.
I mean, I think, again, we're falling into stereotypes. We're falling into, like, very, contained characters.
Yeah.
Jake is the leader, because Tobias was the outsider, I mean, I think that's one of the things that we're working with here.
I was just hoping that, to me, Tobias is, like, the Green Ranger. Like, we all know Red Ranger was in charge.
Yeah.
But truthfully, once Green Ranger showed up, that changed the tables. We all know that Green Ranger just let Red Ranger be in charge.
True.
Yep.
It's true. It's true. So I mean, I don't think it was
philosophy
like
for you.
Yeah, and I don't think it was like a terrible idea, because I think Jake does have like a good mix of like, well, we can, but should we, and how does this work, and like what do we do, and so
that is true. Maybe because he does have some cautiousness about it. That does make
his
him...
reservations.
Yeah.
It's more of a cerebral decision that he makes, whereas like Tobias is almost all heart, and that you can't really do that,
The only thing that Jake seems worried about is like his relationship with his brother.
Well, for good reason.
That's worth mentioning. Like his brother is a couple years older than him.
And Jake mentions that he's being a little bit more distant.
Right, and Jake's brother is like a basketball star. He was awesome in middle school basketball, and now he's on like the high school varsity team. Yeah, I mean, it's really funny. He's like, he was a legend in middle school basketball.
It's like, wait a second, that's not a thing. No one gives a shit.
Right.
Yeah, right.
It's like, you'll find that out, Jake. Yeah. Relax. He's disappointed because he doesn't make the team. That's like the first thing that he's upset about. Like, I think he even says, like, I wish I still had that as the biggest thing I had to care about.
That's as scary as life got back then, because he didn't want to tell his brother that he didn't make the cut.
Yeah, and it's
that's
like
as
5
scary
minutes later,
as life got back then.
The fucking UFO came.
Yeah, seriously. So we find out, why Tom has been so weird, because he's been more distant with Jake. He's been involved in this group called The Sharing, where there's like meetings and stuff. And I mean, The Sharing just sounds creepy, doesn't it?
Yeah, they could have
like,
come
what
up
are
with
you sharing?
I circled that. I was like, excuse me?
They
like,
should have just called it a Boy Scout troop. Or
I mean,
like a co-ed Boy Scout.
I guess. But anyway, we didn't spoiler alert to let y'all know to get out. But while the getting was good, but we're way past that. But it turns out that Jake's brother Tom is a controller.
No, he's not. He's not a controller.
Well, see, that's what happens. That's sort of like how the conversation with Jake and Marco goes.
Yeah,
Marco's
is like, dude, I think your brother's a controller.
Marco's
and Jake just like without any hesitation just punches him in the head. Like, fuck you, don't forget.
And like he starts fighting him. And my favorite part is like he's so upset that Marco has to like trap Jake in his like bedspread to like settle him down. So he gives him like the old comforter cross face to like submit him to like not move. So because Jake is so pissed because he's like, you know what, Tom and I haven't been getting along, but like he's not a controller. That's bullshit. Marco's like, I'm sorry, boo, but like
there are hints too, because like there were some human collaborators there the night that the UFO thing happened, and
Jake even recognizes one of their voices.
Really recognize that laughter. It sounds super duper familiar.
Yeah, and it's not Tom, but it is human.
And then when Jake is a dog, because the dog has such an excellent sense of smell.
Oh, and also I wrote inner dog-a-log. Like,
I like that.
He's like thinking in his own brain, but he thinks that Tom smells weird when he's a dog.
Yeah,
also.
You get the impression that like the depth of his smell is like our sight. So.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So there's the Sharing, this organization that Tom is in, and the kids have been like kind of talking this whole time and having the occasional run-in with like the local police.
Yeah, the police seem to be
also
at some point
there.
At some point one of the guys says like, probably not all the police, and I just wanted to like put a hashtag in front of that. Probably not all cops.
Not all cops.
Probably not all cops.
But yeah, so that's kind of like the two things that are running around. They go to the farm. you know, to kind of like see how things go. We see that, you know, Cassie has acquired the horse morph.
Right.
And then Tobias gets the red-tailed hawk morph.
Yeah, and then like characters in like a Mega Man video game, they immediately go, okay, we need to like acquire more animals. Like I would not have come so quick to that conclusion. I would have like you said, I would have picked a cat and I would have been like spent weeks just like seeing how.
Well, I would have had to go out because growing up I didn't have any pets.
Yeah,
I would have had to go to the zoo or some shit. I'd have been screwed. Like I would have been like, I have this awesome power, but I can't use it.
Well, that was clever of them. They're like, we have to go to a zoo. We have to find big animals to get their power.
Well, they start to see how high the stakes are because they end up going to this sharing meeting basically to spy on Tom and see if this is an evil organization, which of course it is.
Guys,
you know, full members have like a private meeting away from the rest of the meeting where they discuss. Like,
that's the other thing we have to mention about the Yeerks is that they can't stay in the bodies they control indefinitely. They have to go out every couple of days. And
it's every 3, I think, and they have to go into the Yeerk pool and soak up the Kandrona rays of their home sun.
Apparently they need to...
This is a thing in my brain.
Like the opposite of Superman, they need to absorb radiation from their sun that's literally like piped all over the galaxy, and they have to sit underneath it, and that...
Or like swim in it.
It puts these particles back into their body that nourish them instead of food. I mean, whatever, just go with it.
It's a thing.
Here's my question. Whenever I'm reading these books, if there's this advanced alien race and there's an advanced alien race war, why is it that, like, me being a tiger can defeat them?
Well, right. Like, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I feel like...
I kind of agree.
I don't understand how useful the Animorph power is because, like
wouldn't a phaser gun be more useful?
I mean, I would want a weapon. I mean, not that turning into a cat isn't cool.
Yeah, they established that these Dracon beam weapons they have are, like, an instant disintegrate ray. Mm-hmm. And that the ship has a big one, and the guys all have handheld ones.
But, like, why don't you turn into a cat and just lick your cat balls, and that'll probably save the universe.
Also, I keep thinking, like, why don't they just capture one of these Hork-Bajir dudes and, like, become that? Because, like, it's established from Visser 3 that, like, he's become... He's powerful because he has a repertoire of morphs from, like, a bunch of different fucking planets.
Yeah, right? Well, we know he can be fucking scary.
Yeah.
Do you remember that show on Sci-Fi Channel where it was, like... We're gonna put a giant whale against like a giant squid or something.
Yeah.
And then like we find out who wins, or like a T-Rex versus like an elephant or something.
Yeah.
But like to me, it's like taking like advanced alien life form versus tiger.
Yeah.
It seems like it's not like the tiger. It has primal like fighting instincts, but they don't have
and
any
like sharp teeth and claws. But
but like how is that up against?
Well,
like,
after what they
scientific,
I got the impression that it was one of those old-fashioned. Planet,
like
Captain
Braun
Planet,
works more,
Captain Planet style storylines, or even more like the old-fashioned RPGs.
Okay.
You know, where like traditionally the forces of change, especially like technology, were evil, and like the old-fashioned stuff like spirits and magic are seen as good. I think it's hearkening back to that. It's like we may not have the technology, but we have the full power of all the primality of all the animals.
And they're on the side of justice, which is usually prevalent. It's an underdog story to be sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like, again, spoiler alert, I feel like they acquire alien morphs down the line. I feel like I remember
they do that.
At least a Hork-Bajir, I think.
That's
good. But I mean, I think that's another discussion for another day. But
that'd be a Chekhov's
we'll work our way.
But they learn all this stuff about the sharing group, and they understand like, okay, we need to like get some firepower. They also realize that the
we need to find the Yeerk pool.
And that the voice that they heard was their assistant principal. It's always the assistant principal, right?
You know, I
like never the principal.
I put that down so perfectly normal. It's abnormal, and I was like, that sums up suburbs, like 90s suburbs to me.
Absolutely.
That's a theme in Buffy. That's a theme here. It's been used in other schools. So like
that's continual.
All the bad guys, you know, like the main pool is like under the school, but like it's actually there's a network under the whole town.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
You know,
we've seen that in Buffy a lot. I mean, it's like 7 Hellmouths under that school.
Yeah, that's right. It turns out. So Jake finds the secret passage in the school, like in the janitor's
by
closet.
Turning into a lizard, which is so gross.
I love that part. I love that part.
Lots of 90s aloofness going on. Like there'll be a sentence that said, like you care.
Yeah,
that 90s aloofness.
There's an overall sarcasm to it that I think makes it really work. I think the tone of the book is really great because it's already cynical, I think, so that like kids would accept it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because that's how you feel when you're that age. You're like, nothing matters. And I mean, I know you don't care. I'm all depressed and shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Because it is absurd, and I think that the sarcastic tone really offsets that, because they're already poking at how ridiculous it is, so that the reader doesn't have to.
Yeah.
And you're almost like on their side in the group with them.
Right.
Pretty cool.
But,
So they go and they figure out what's going on. And
they see their whole world underground.
Yeah, exactly. And then
and that's the thing.
They see the door.
People, after the Yeerks come out of them, I would think that an alien race would have a better system in place than this, but apparently
Agreed.
Some of the controllers stay in their controlled bodies, while some of the other controlled bodies get lowered into the pool, and the Yeerk pops out, sucks up the Calandra star rays, and then they take the body. And, like, on the other side of the pool, they stick their head back in the water so the Yeerk can go back in.
Yeah, but the Yeerk needs a hot minute in the pool.
Yeah.
So that the people have to be put in cages and stuff.
Right,
I mean,
so they have,
so the people then they're aware that they're being controlled by gross slug things.
Yeah, I mean, they know it when it's in the brain,
Right.
but then, like, they're free for a little bit and they can scream and yell and do what they want.
Right.
Though, I mean, your previous description of their escort to said pool, a kangaroo made of knives.
Yeah.
I'm
or a centipede.
probably not going to fuck around.
True.
Like,
Yeah,
I'm not going to be
true.
happy about it. I'm going to do some yelling, but, like, I'm going to go to my cage.
But that's true. There were two different
Yeah.
groups of people. There were the vast majority were not voluntary. They had been
That's
they had
true,
been
yeah.
conquered. Their bodies had been conquered.
Yes.
And Jake's super relieved to find out that his brother is one of them.
Yeah, because, I mean, we
Yes.
definitely have confirmation.
And
You know,
then-
Tom's definitely a controller.
Yes.
And then
But
later,
he's not voluntary.
Right,
Which is
and
good.
then later on at the same time,
Well,
like behind a screen, there's an area with like some humans that aren't being tortured that are just sitting there watching TV, and it's like, oh yeah, those are collaborators. They willingly
signed up
went,
for it.
and all
Yes.
the kids are like, what the fuck? And it's like, yeah, there are evil
And I
people
think
in the
that's
world.
compelling.
That was an interesting line in there. Marco had that I wrote up here. Where is it? He's so hardened by truth. It's like some people are scum, he says.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that was like really deep for like a kid's book. Like, you know what? There's just shitty people.
Absolutely. And I think that there is some shitty people, but what I thought was compelling about it is all the different reasons that maybe you would just want someone playing puppet for a while, you know, like
Right.
you think about how shitty Marco's life, you know, is, and like what if his dad became a controller? He probably wouldn't feel anything anymore. We see it on both ends of how the Yeerk can control a human and take over his brain, maybe take away his pain, and we see it with the kids when they're like, oh my god, I could be a dog forever, it's so happy.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, I think that's interesting.
Is this a commentary on TV? Because I remember in the 90s there was kind of this big push then. Like, I remember for, like, the big help thing, and, like,
Yeah.
Nick, like, oh, go play outside.
Yeah.
Like, they would have commercials during the day, like, oh, turn off the TV, go outside, kids. And, like, that was a really big thing, because tech really hadn't become a huge thing at that point, in
No.
terms of, like, having
People
everybody
were
as
very afraid of the pervasiveness tech had in our lives.
and
I think
television, because television, for a long time, yeah, there was, 26 new channels, but at this point now we have satellite TVs that have
there were
hundreds
of channels, yeah.
of channels
It was a
and
big deal.
premium
And by this
cable
time,
and
the
stuff.
internet was on the horizon.
Yeah,
It wasn't-
yeah.
The internet was pretty readily
was-
available in the home, I would say, by 96.
I
Maybe
didn't
more
get it until
97,
99.
98.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
but
depends. It depends on where you lived. I
Cooler,
think.
the cooler people had it by this point, and it was in a much more nascent form.
But also it was very limited. You
That's
could only
right.
be on for like an hour.
yeah,
And
it
also
was still
it was
charged
still
by
tied
the
to your
hour. It
time
was
phone.
still like there wasn't any.
Dial-up was excruciating.
Yeah, there wasn't
Yeah.
enough
to be
bandwidth
honest.
for videos and stuff like we have now.
Mm-mm.
But I think
Right.
you're right in that our relationship with tech has changed so rapidly that people from just one generation before are totally baffled. Like I mentioned the Borg before.
Right.
The Borg were a reaction to our increasing reliance on tech too, because like they
Right.
were these races of aliens that were just like taken over by fucking machines, and now I honestly can tell you that I think if you took a kid born in like 2000 and showed him the Borg, you'd be like, awesome, how do I get to be one of those? You know, like
They wouldn't
what's the
understand.
problem?
Yeah,
It's
they
like
wouldn't understand why
if-
it's evil.
I mean, even
But it's
me.
interesting that the passiveness, like you can be enslaved, but you're seemingly okay because you're enslaved by the TV, which I thought
Well,
was really
mhm.
interesting.
I guess what I would
Yeah.
say is
It's
as-
a cool visual.
As
for
regarding
sure.
the Borg, I wouldn't be okay with being enslaved if it meant I got to be immortal. So we'll see if they mention that at some point here.
That's
True.
But so Cassie, the controllers have Cassie.
That's right. They've
Yeah,
captured
because
her.
this
is like our big climax point
right, because
here.
this
Like,
cop
this
has
is
been
the big
bothering
issue.
them like the whole time. Like, were you kids at the construction site? And they were like, no.
You
And,
get the feeling they know that it was them, but they don't have enough evidence.
and they
I
can't.
thought that they
yeah.
were harassing Cassie because she was black, but that was just me.
That's totally possible, yeah.
But that was just...
Well, it's also because
That was just me.
Cassie was watching. Well, at one point, Jake goes and spies as a dog, and then
Yes.
Cassie rocks up as a human because she's worried about him.
Yes.
And she gets caught.
That's probably why they have increased suspicion on her. And
Exactly.
I feel like I'm victim blaming now, but I'm just trying to look at it from the other perspective.
Right, totally. So,
But, yeah.
so they know that like they've made this plan to go down to the pool. You know, Jake really wants to save his brother. They're gonna try to like
Yeah.
bust in there and like
Yeah.
kick some ass.
So they're like hundreds of meters below the ground now.
Yeah, and so they sneak down there as humans because they're like, well, who's to say that we're not controllers too? No one's gonna know. So they get down there and they hide, and then they see that, you know, Cassie's been captured, and they're basically trying to force her, you know, to get a yerk in her head as well. So so Rachel turns into a fucking elephant, like you
Yeah.
do.
Fucking elephant.
Jake now has the tiger morph because when they went to the zoo, he almost got eaten by one, but
Right.
like zoned it out by getting its DNA. And
Yeah,
now
that's
he can
the
be a fucking
helpful
tiger.
thing. Once you touch an animal to commune with it, it just kind of chills out.
Yeah. And so it doesn't eat you, which is great.
Which that,
And
yeah,
then-
I mean, convenient.
And then Marco acquired a gorilla morph when he was at the zoo with them as well.
and the gorilla
See,
just...
I would turn to a fucking hippo. Because, like,
Well,
those shit, that's fucking brutal.
They got into the pen with the rhinoceros and
Yeah.
then left, and I was like, what
I was
the
like,
fuck is wrong with you?
that would have been
the
excellent.
rhinoceros would be way more badass even than the tiger or the elephant.
Yeah, you guys are
Now,
Right?
see, if you touch
Not-
a
not
baby... or like a baby version of an animal, do you only have like baby version DNA?
That's a good question.
Because
Well,
like,
age-
well, DNA is
Age
DNA.
isn't inherently a part of DNA, is it?
I know.
'Cause
I know
they
injuries.
cover
not.
this a bit. Like,
Because the red-tailed hawk that Tobias acquired was injured,
Right.
and they were like, "Well, that was dumb." And he's like, "Well, his DNA is an injured asshole."
yeah.
you know,
That's right.
It's basically how that goes.
Yeah. And the other thing about
Beautiful.
Tobias was he didn't want any other morphs. He was like, no, I'm happy with
No,
just the
I'm
bird.
good.
I don't want to be anything
Good.
other than
I
this
can like
bird.
fly and
you know,
shit.
you can kind of tell that he's only ever wanted to become a bird in his life. Like,
Yeah.
really
He had
has
no
this-
other aspirations.
Even if he didn't realize it at the time.
stopped
Yeah.
he's
right
like,
there.
he's like, I peaked in high school. God
And
damn
then
it.
he,
I peeked at bird.
so he's like a bird for a lot of the time while they're in that place too.
Yeah, because he
Right.
goes down as a bird as well. I
And
think.
finally,
Convenient.
Fister 3 sees them and kind of just gets like, he loses his shit.
He
or
assumes-
no, that's right. Because they're morphed,
He assumes they're
that they
Andalites.
are Andalites that he missed.
Well,
He's
yes.
like, oh, I'm going to get you now. And he like basically shows off what seems like his ultimate form. He's like, I acquired this on the second moon of a dying star. And he like literally becomes like this huge room-filling thing, even as huge as the room is.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, we got to get as many people as we can and get out of here.
So they grab a bunch of people, you know, Tom
People
among
jump
them.
on top of Cassie the horse and ride her out of there.
And Cassie's got to get some better morphs, man. Like
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
fucked. Like she
Yeah.
needs a better thing than horse.
They even mentioned that they're like they totally fail. Like they don't manage to save anyone other than Tom, basically.
Well, no, because they don't even save Tom because Tom's captured.
Oh,
and
that's
he
right.
Starts,
Yeah.
like, he starts
Right.
like punching a taxon in the face. I'm like,
Yeah.
please don't die.
Yeah.
So I mean, so their mission is totally unsuccessful.
But they manage to escape because literally they go once they go far up enough the stairs, Visser 3 can't fit through the stairway after them anymore. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
he's too big. He doesn't
couldn't
fit.
he just demorph, or like maybe since the thing he morphed
Demorph.
into was so big? Well, the other ones
Right.
do that.
Yeah,
Like,
because like you would get
You
smaller
change
when you go
morphs.
between
yeah, I think even
forms.
like at one point like
No, that's correct. You can go from human to animal, or can you, or is it
I think-
human
I
to
think you
animal
have
to
to
human to
transition
animal?
back to human.
You got-
I agree with
okay,
Jesse.
But
okay.
they can
I just need a
they
clarification.
can stay in transitional forms. I remember reading that like Cassie was able to do that. She like
She can be like a half
she
human
could
horse?
pause it. Yeah.
Especially because she was
Oh,
good
so
at
like
it.
so like on the book, I could be like this kind of.
Probably. I don't
Wizard
see why
or
not.
something.
Even,
Probably.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
there's even a point where like Jake is trying to do it for the first time and like
He gets scared
He
and
starts
it's, like,
turning
halfway
into a
through.
dog and like freaks out. And like he has just like patches of fur
Oh,
and like
yeah,
his
yeah,
ears
yeah,
have
yeah.
moved a little bit, but he's
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like 10% a dog.
10%
Yeah,
dog.
exactly. So
Dog
so,
loading.
So yeah, so I mean, like Visser 3 just can't follow. He's not good at life, I guess. So he
Yeah,
doesn't
and
try to demorph or anything. But there is an amazing line that I'd like to read, because I don't know, this book, like it's actually scary. Like
Yeah.
it's awesome, and I think so many parts of it are just so well written. The part, you know, as they're escaping, you know, because they're climbing up these big stairs because
Right.
it's like at the bottom of their town or whatever, and they're climbing back up to get out through the school, and it says. and we ran up the stairs with 100 nightmares on our heels.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was good.
I mean, that was badass.
That was a good line.
Badass.
That's a good line.
So, Tobias isn't escaping with the kids, but the kids don't know that. They go home.
Jake
Jake
don't
goes
know where
home.
Tobias is.
He's totally upset. He failed to save his brother. He's upset. He just tries to pass out and everything.
I put done fucked up. That's
Yeah.
It was not a great first mission.
The mission was.
Did they even save that one single human?
You're right.
I
They didn't
don't think
save any.
I don't feel like they saved anyone.
It was totally a fail. I mean, but like, what do you expect? All they were told is, you have 2 hours to change.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so
that's it. Like,
figure shit
ya.
out.
Yeah.
So the next day, Jake wakes up, still wanting to believe the whole thing was a dream. Then Tobias shows up, and he's like, "Oh, hey, dude, you're a bird still. You should probably. You remember we can only stay animals for 2 hours. I'm glad that you got out of there though and managed to change." And he's like, "Oh, about that. I was stuck in there a long time. I think it was too long, and now I can't turn back into a person. I'm stuck as a bird."
And that's literally how the book ends. Like,
Yeah,
we pretty much end on that
just
note.
about, yeah. I mean, the one thing the other thing that you have to mention is that the Andalite did say, "Hey, listen, I sent a message to my people, and they're on their way sending more troops, but
Right.
it'll take a while.
You gotta hold it.
It'll
You gotta
probably
hold
be
on.
like at least
Basically
a
hold
year
the
before they
That's
show up."
right. Yeah, we should have
Yeah.
probably mentioned that.
So like that's
yeah.
literally like the last two sentences
It
are well, the Andalites will be here in a year. What do we do till then? And Jake is like,
Have a
"Oh,
series."
we fight." Yeah, so
we fight. So
It's
I
a
mean,
good place to end.
is the hope that the Andalites will then bring the technology to unhawk
I
Tobias?
guess so.
maybe.
But
well,
I did
I think
put,
it's more that they're going to bring reinforcements.
Yeah.
But yeah, that too.
Maybe some of those like vaporizing rays would be great.
Yeah.
Can we get some of
Can we get
those?
some of
Now that you mention
like-
it makes me think of the end of District 9, because remember how the dude
Yes.
gets turned into one of the aliens and he's like, "I'll be back to turn you into a dude. Just have to chill for 3 years."
Yeah.
Yeah, same
I
dude.
put Tobias permanently morphed. He done fucked up. So that's very much how my notes
Well,
are.
you know,
They
he's
done
probably
fucked
happier.
up, permanently morphed. He done fucked up.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was trying to make sure he didn't get shot with a
Yeah,
Right,
so that's
yeah,
more
'cause
with
he
an
was
organic
hiding.
matter vaporizing beam.
But
Yeah.
here's the thing that I found out about like reading, prepping for the Animorph discussion, is that apparently the author has like a lot of anxiety and she was so afraid of letting down the fans that she just stopped writing the books.
Oh my gosh.
It's like,
are you serious?
yeah, is that crazy?
She's also a Newbery winner though, so she's
I mean,
good at shit.
There are a lot of Animorph books.
There
I was going to
are.
say, she
Yeah,
did get
there are a
long way
lot, but
through.
I don't know if the series has ever been definitively finished.
You know what? That's a lot of pressure.
There's a couple of
Yeah.
side. I mean, it was after we were kids. I think there's a couple of side series.
Because I heard too that Kay
So.
Applegate did not use like a ghost writers or like a team of writers like for preference, like a lot of the Babysitter Club books. I don't think like the first dozen or so. Of
Anne
them.
wrote the first 35.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
and-
it.
Yeah.
And the rest are
That's
ghost
it.
written?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the same thing with like Sweet Valley High. Like they
That's
were all
actually
like,
pretty common among these serialized juvenile fiction.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, for instance, if you didn't know, the Hardy Boys are all written by Franklin W. Dixon, which is a pseudonym.
Right.
It's like literally a different person every time.
Yes.
But there's like a style guide that
Yes.
that they all have to follow.
But it's interesting because like you can tell in the Babysitters Club like, oh, this doesn't quite seem like the Christie that I knew.
Right, right. That's
right.
interesting
But with
how
the
that happens.
Animorphs, I felt like there was a lot of consistency in the
Yeah.
tone and the style.
Because
and
each
how
book
it
is in
exists.
first person, but it goes character to character, just like the Babysitters Club ones do. So
Right.
we do get to know everybody pretty personally.
Yeah.
That's good.
But there's a lot of consistency. I mean, we've got plenty of books to discuss.
Now, to wrap up, for like just like I did with the Babysitters Club, out of 5, what would you give this one? 5. You give it a
This
solid
book is
5.
badass, you guys. This is one of my all-time favorites.
I feel like I can never give number 1 a 5 because I feel like I don't think this is peaked yet.
You're right.
Maybe a 4.5.
I'm gonna say 4.
Maybe.
All right,
it is good.
4.9 to that point.
It is
4.9.
good. I think it's paced really well. I think it's really interesting. I think if you have kids who don't like reading, that this would be a book that they would like because it
100%.
feels like you're reading a movie
Right.
more than like
100%.
having to think of like I feel like with the Babysitters Club maybe you have to create the world a little bit more on
Yeah.
your own.
But they give it
whereas-
to you in Animorphs.
This world happens to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it
Happens to you. I like that.
Yes,
That's so true.
I like
That's
that.
so
I like
true.
that a
Yeah.
lot.
The more we talked about it, I like it. When I was reading it, I was just like,
And I mean-
it feels like it's trying a little hard. But
Well,
then, that's
also-
me as an adult seeing this.
Yeah, these books also came out before there was like the deluge of like apocalyptic fiction for
That's
like young
true.
adults.
That's true.
That's so true.
And
We
This
had
was
zombies and vampires.
and this was majorly
Yes.
a front runner for that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Right, because there really wasn't that kind of focus. I mean, the 90s was a hip happening time.
And
but,
to be fair,
I feel like this book is before its time.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I totally
And to be
agree.
fair, there really, really wasn't a furry subculture.
That's
Although these books are...
no. But before it was mascot subculture.
You're right.
Then it turned into furry. Why do I know this?
I don't know.
Well,
I'm upset at myself.
no, that's how it happens as an internet denizen. Like,
Yeah.
you stumble
The internet
upon
brings us full
awful
circle.
things without meaning to, and it's like, I have to know this, so you will too.
Exactly.
So, because this podcast is so long, we're actually going to probably split this in 2 different episodes.
I was
Yeah,
thinking
we
doing
went
that.
a little
you
long,
can
y'all.
really, so you can really enjoy it.
Absolutely.
And you can follow us on Twitter at Super Serials or on Facebook, facebook.com/superserials.
Check us out on Instagram. We just got an Insta, so bear with us while we work up the content. But that's super.serials. We totally want to interact with you guys. We want to hang out. We want to talk about this shit, so get at us for sure.
Yes, and this time we voted on Kool-Aid. I think next time will be snack cakes.
Oh,
We'll decide
Cool,
which snack
yeah.
cakes to eat. And you
you
guys
can
have
follow
any-
me at LA_Croft.
You can follow me at Crown of Magnets.
where we like tweet our own personal funny things, and you can read more about our other projects. And I like to end to then wrap it up.
Yeah, well, we want to talk about next episode really quick, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay. So we did decide, like I said, we want you guys' input. We will definitely take that into account moving forward. But we had to pick it, so we picked it.
Yeah.
So next time we are gonna do Goosebumps #1. Welcome to Dead House, and we're gonna go back to the babysitters. We're gonna do #2, Claudia and the Phantom Phone Calls.
So it's gonna be kind of a spooky themed podcast.
Very
I think,
exciting.
for next week.
Very
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
And this is going to be one where I come more into my own, because like this is a book that I did read as a child. These two,
You'll have that connection.
These
That's what we
two
need.
were new to me. So.
That's what we need. All right.
well, good.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time. In the meantime, stay super serial.